All right, good morning. Please be seated. We're about to start. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 2023 Leadership Forum for Young Korean Americans. My name is Jin Twilly. It is my honor to be a part of this event as a Master of Ceremony. This is the fourth year we have produced the Leadership Forum, which is made possible by the Consulate General of the Republic of Korea in New York and the Federation of Korean American Association of Northeastern USA. The purpose of this event is to introduce leaders and mentors to the next generation of Korean Americans. We hope our audience will come away from this event inspired by their stories and have some fun as well. Let's begin the program with an opening declaration by Han-ik Son and John An, Vice President of the Federation of Korean American Association, FKAANE USA. 손한익 회장님.
안녕하십니까. 미 동북부 한인회 연합회 부회장 손한익입니다. 지금부터 주 뉴욕 대한민국 총영사관과 미 동북부 한인회 연합회가 주최하는 2023 차세대 포럼을 시작하겠습니다.
Hello everyone, welcome. My name is John An. I am the Vice President of Federation of Korean American Association of Northeastern USA. First of all, I would like to thank President Judy Yu and Council General for putting this event together. Now, we will begin the 2023 Leadership Forum for Young Korean American, co-hosted by Consulate General of the Republic of Korea in New York and Federation of Korean American Association of Northeastern United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next is a national ceremony, please rise from your seat to salute to the national flags. 국기에 대한 경례. 바로 moment of silence of our fallen heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice for our democracy and freedom. 묵념. 바로 please remain standing for both national anthem by Edelweiss Ensemble from New York. 에델바이스 학생들, 앙상블 학생들 올라주십시오.
so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave truth through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, please give a warm welcome to the President of the Federation of... Oops, sorry. Excuse me. Next, please give a warm welcome to the President of the Federation of Korean American Association of Northeastern USA, Judy Yu, for her welcoming remarks.
네, 안녕하세요. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining 2023 Leaders Forum for Young Korean Americans. Every year we invited outstanding and distinguished Korean American leaders from various fields to share their success story and personal experience and vision and even failure story with our young leaders. This year, it's a very special year. We are celebrating 120 years of Korean immigrant to United States, and we are celebrating 70 years of Korea-US alliance. So we figured maybe choosing the topic, political empowerment, is it's pretty good fit for this year. So we invited many outstanding, distinguished elected officers and then public officials, just like Ellen Park from NJ, New Jersey State Representative, and Linda Lee from New York, a City Council member. She is with us from year 2020. So thank you so much for continued support. And then Paul Kim from Palisades Park, Mayor, he's going to join us, and we're going to share his story as well. And also David O. He's former Philadelphia council member, and then he just resigned his three term of a council seat to run the Philadelphia mayor. So he's outstanding, and he supported us for many years as well. And then I call him as a rising star, Joe Lee from PA, governor's office. He was acting secretary of PA, and then now he's serving as deputy chief of staff of PA governor office. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And then also I would like to express gratitude and then special thanks to Consular General of Republic of Korea in New York, and especially because they've been with us for the past 3 years for co-hosting this amazing leadership forum, and thank you so much. And especially Consul General Kim Ui-wan 총영사님, 대사님, he's here with us, and he doesn't want to do the welcome remarks, even though he's co-hosting together, but he want to save time for after lunch. We have another lecture series about Great Korea, the Korea's success and the pride, and then I thank you for that. And then I think he's paying for our lunch as well today, so thank you so much. And then, so we have a great program today at the forum and lecture. And then we have a lot of students came from far distance, and especially like Pittsburgh. They were here yesterday. They drove 6-7 hours. I think 10, 11 students from Pittsburgh Can you raise your hand? Let's give them a warm welcome. They drove so long. And then we also have a student from Guatemala. So from they took the airplane to get here. So thank you so much. I'd like to welcome all of them. And right now, I want to take a special moment to presenting, because this is from all of us actually, to Consul General for hosting this great program again this year. And then since he doesn't want to have a speech here, come on the stage, and then we want to give him. We have to finish up this ceremony in 15 minutes. Angela, she is one of our students attending every year and giving a lot of work. And then, 감사합니다, 대사님. 네. Okay, so everybody enjoy and have some motivation and have some leadership that you are seeking to have, and then, enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, President Judy Yu. The last part of opening ceremony, the 축사가 있겠습니다. The Federation of Korean American Association of Northeastern USA represents 18 Korean American associations from 6 states, including New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Delaware. Today, we invite Kwang-seok Kim, President of Korean American Association of Greater New York, and James Kim, President of the Korean American Association of Greater Philadelphia, for their congratulatory remarks. Please.
안녕하십니까. 이렇게 영광스러운 자리에 인사할 수 있게 돼서 진짜 영광입니다. Good morning. It is a great privilege to be invited to this 2023 Leadership Forum for Young Korean Americans. I'm Kwang Kim, President of Korean American Association of Greater New York, which is in New York, 한인회. One of our missions is to provide a foundation for the young generation of Korean Americans to take over the major roles and responsibilities for the Korean American community in the near future. Over 2.5 million Koreans and those of Korean descent live in the US. The flow of immigration from South Korea has recently faded, but the Korean American population keep growing, mainly due to marriage and birth. The future of the Korean community absolutely rely on to this young generation, young Korean Americans. I'm deeply appreciative to the Federation of Korean American Association of Northeastern in the USA and the Consulate General of Republic of Korea for organizing and sponsoring this very valuable forum. And special thanks to Ju Hyang Lee, the president of the Federation of Korean American Association, and Consulate General Woo-han Kim. I also extend the sincere thanks to the panelists, whose vision, experience, and practice can be a clear guidance to the fellow young Korean Americans. I'm also appreciative to the student attending this forum for your mindset to listen and learn, your ability to take over, to tackle the challenge, and your creativity enables you to grow. And I'm sure that one day you will become a very important asset to your profession and the community. And finally, I would like to give a big round of applause to the organizer, leaders, staff, and volunteers, and students all participating in this very special event. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is James Kim, the president from Korean American Association of Greater Philadelphia. We had a similar event like this on June in Philadelphia. We had less people show up than this, but we actually learned from our Federation Association how to connect with the young generation in Philadelphia. I'm sure we're going to actually conduct every year from Philadelphia too. I mean, it's my pleasure to see young people, young Korean Americans here in New Jersey too. I mean, today we come together to celebrate the power of leadership, recognizing the unique experience and challenges. And then, I mean, you guys are the leaders in the future for the Korean community. Being a Korean community, Korean American leaders, I'm really going to be really proud yourself, and you guys need to be step up, encourage yourself, and take care of each other. The leadership knows no boundaries. It transcends culture, background, languages, and borders. As a young Korean American, you have the opportunity to embrace the duality of your identity and draw strength from both the Korean and American culture that flow with you. The leadership is about embracing your heritage and culture roots while also embracing the values of inclusivity, diversity, and equality. It is about honoring the sacrifice of your parents and ancestors while forging your own path and inspiring others to do the same. I mean, I have unwavering confidence in your ability to lead with a purpose, integrity, and compassion. Your heritage, coupled with your leadership skills, with the proper you forward and endeavor to overcome any obstacle. Together, let us embrace our shared journey, empower one another, and create a future where the young Korean American not only thrive but also contribute significantly to the fabric of this great nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll set up for forum at the moment, and then we'll start forum right away. Now, it is the time for the Leadership Forum, what we all have been waiting for. Please welcome our forum moderator and our 5 panelists on the stage. Please. So our Janice Lee, moderator, will take it away. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janice Lee, and I have the honor of acting as the moderator for this year's Leadership Forum for Young Korean Americans. I want to say thank you to the Federation, particularly Judy Yu, whose guidance has been invaluable. Thank you to Jin Twilley, all the volunteers, and of course the Consulate General. And thank you to the audience for joining us on a Saturday morning. Quick reminder that there are pens and papers on the table for you to write down any questions you might have as you're listening to the panelists speak. Please take advantage of this time. Someone will come around and collect them around noon for the Q&A at the end, probably Jin. Let's jump right in. Please know that there are some brief bios in the booklets in front of you. So starting from my left, as I briefly introduce this all-star lineup, I'm going to ask that the panelists tell us, just as a little icebreaker, what generation are you? For example, I'm second generation. Where is your birthplace, and where do you live now? And panelists, our goal is about 2 minutes for response time.
Sure, thank you very much. Should I start first?
I will introduce you first. Okay, so on my left is Paul Kim, who's the current mayor of Palisade Park. And again, it's what generation, where's your birthplace, and where do you live now?
I will be considered a 1.5 generation. I was born and raised in Seoul, Korea, specifically Sochodong. It's in the Gangnam area. I immigrated here in 1991, graduated in Tenafly in 1993, and went to University of Massachusetts at Amherst for a bio degree, minor in psychology, went to NYU for grad school in biotechnology. I love New Jersey. I love where we live. That's why we're here.
Thank you. And then we have Miss Ellen Park, a lawyer, former council member, and now New Jersey State Representative.
I am also 1.5 generation. I was born in Seoul, Korea, and now I live in Englewood Cliffs, which is part of one of the towns from my district. I have 8 towns, including Palisades Park, that I represent. And I just want to say that, you know, you guys should all be very proud to be Korean American, Korean Guatemalan, wherever you're from. The other half, you should be very, very proud that we are together as Koreans here together today.
Thank you. And next we have Linda Lee, a New York City Council member.
Hi, everyone. Second gen, was born in Elmira, New York. I will give $10 to whoever knows where that is. Someone told our family, we don't know, like I asked my parents once, I'm like, how did we end up in Elmira? They're like, we don't know. Someone said it was a great place to move to. And then moved to Long Island, and then now I'm currently in Oakland Gardens, Eastern Queens. So for those that don't know, city council members in New York City, there's 51 of us. Each of us have about 172,000 residents in each city council district. And Sandra Ung in Flushing has the highest concentration or percentage of Asian Americans. I have the second highest. I got 45% Asian American in my district, but half of that is South Asian, half of that is East Asian. So it's a very, very diverse district, which means we have some of the best food.
Wow, what a plug for the food. Next up, we have Joe Lee, former CIA analyst, currently Deputy Chief of Staff for Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here with you all and with all the panelists here. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, so that's a little bit a bit ways from the Northeast here, but I know the Guatemala person may feel a little bit lonely. Just want to say I empathize with you. I currently live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I'm very privileged to share the residence with Representative Patty Kim, who I believe has attended some of these events in the past. So I'm very excited to be here, and thank you.
And last but certainly not least, we have David O., lawyer, former council member, and current mayoral candidate for Philadelphia.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Well, I'm second generation. You might call it first generation. It just depends on who's speaking, right? So typically, if you're born in the U.S., you would be first generation. But our parents and forefathers decided they were first generation because they came here first. So we're second generation. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I live on the same block that I've lived on since 1963. Never left that block. And I live there today with my wife and 4 kids. I was a city council person at large, which means I represent the whole city. Our city is approximately 1.6 million people. We have a lot of diversity, as you would imagine, in a big city like that. Not quite as big as New York, right? The Big Apple. But we are an overwhelmingly Democratic city. I happen to be a Republican. So it makes for interesting, perspectives because I represent a lot of different people as an Asian American, a Korean American, and as a Republican.
Thank you. So let's just dive right in. Tell us a little bit about how you got where you are. Was there a defining moment, a sort of light bulb, revelation that determined the trajectory of your career paths? And we'll start with Paul Kim.
Thank you. Like I told you guys before, I was born and raised in Korea, but since first grade, I went to an international American school there. So I was taught American culture, American studies, education. Actually, matter of fact, if I spoke Korean in my school, I'll get a detention. But I got the diversification, education, and the knowledge and on the culture of Korean side and the American side, 50-50. And for some reason, I had to immigrate to the United States, and I couldn't do anything about it. And I really missed my home. I cried many nights because I moved when I was in 11th grade, a grade where, on that level when you start to open up your friendship with your friends and your schoolwork and your relationship around your neighborhood is very important. I dropped everything and I came over here, and I graduated from Tenafly. Now in Tenafly, even though it's a very nice town, I love that town very much. I was persecuted. I was discriminated. And even though I could speak English, I knew the culture. I felt like an American, but at that moment, I knew I wasn't. After that, I went to Palisades Park. And when I saw Palisades Park, I saw something like maybe in the near future. I think we had great hopes for the evolution that's happening in Palisades Park, where a lot of Korean Americans were investing, believing in the future of that town, and a lot of Korean people came, and I thought, you know what, this could be a place where Korean Americans, but not only Korean Americans, but the people who share that culture in that town, we could really have a bright future, a better future that could represent what we Korean Americans, could provide, being a fabric of the American society, and as Korean Americans. And that took me 16 years. I started with philanthropy, because that's where you start. You gotta know your community. You gotta work with your community. You gotta find out what you need. And then I decided that, you know what, I think I have to make a change from the top. So it took me 16 years to become the mayor of Palisades Park.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your struggles and your journey through that. And next up we have Ellen Park.
I think everybody has a defining moment, but for me, I came here in the late 70s, so even though there weren't many of us, we were together, right? So we had pockets of places. I grew up in Queens that were majority Korean, so I never felt kind of discriminated, only because my community was always Korean people. But that aside, I studied political science in college, and the defining moment for me is when I had to take my naturalization test to become an American citizen. So my parents did not naturalize to date. Myself and my sister naturalized on our own, and just kind of studying for the naturalization test, it was like, what does this mean to me? Why do I need to be an American citizen? What benefits do I get from becoming an American citizen, right? And it's really the vote, right? The power of the vote. Before then, I was never allowed to vote. I think I naturalized when I was 20, so it took a couple of years because I put in my own papers after I turned 18. And I think to me, once that happened, I realized, you know what? There's a lot of us in New York area, but we never vote. And so we really need to be civically engaged and come together as a community to vote and have a bigger voice. So that's, to me, was the defining moment.
It's so interesting how different the experiences can be, even with the different generations that are on stage. And take it away, Ellen. I mean, Linda, I'm so sorry.
I was like, again.
Linda Lee.
No, thank you. I think for me, it was like a series of small aha moments. Because one thing I have to say in a room full of youth is that it's okay if you don't know what you want to do in the future. I think the original path I had in the beginning versus where I am now is completely different. So when I was in college, I went to Barnard. I was studying economics, thought I was going to go into investment banking and in finance and make a ton of money as soon as I graduated. But the summer before my senior year of college, I remember I took a job working as a camp counselor for inner city kids from the Bronx. And it was that summer where I first realized, okay, I know I want to help people, I just don't know how, right? And then I went to China for a year to Yanbian teaching English and doing all of that, and then came back and I was like, okay, trying to figure it out. And I have to say, I don't know if you all feel this way on the youth side, but I felt, because once you're in college, up until that point, you're all on the same trajectory and path and timeline, right? But once you graduate college, it's sort of like everyone kind of goes their own way. So I remember feeling this pressure, like, oh, what am I gonna do? And don't judge me, but I was at a John Mayer concert at Jones Beach. I don't even know if you guys know who John Mayer is. But I was at a John Mayer concert at Jones Beach, and I ran into a church friend of mine that I hadn't seen in 10 years, and she was like, you should think about going into social work. And I was like, what's that? Because these are careers that typically our parents don't talk to us about. They talk about being lawyers and doctors going into finance, but I had no idea what social work was, and that there was even a profession where all you do is help people. That's it. Like at a very large scale, you help people. That's what social workers do, and you find them everywhere. And so for me, that was really the path that started me on my nonprofit career. And I only thought about mainstream nonprofit organizations, and then in 2009, Mr. Kwang-suk Kim, actually, and the board decided to hire me at KCS, where I was there for 12 years working alongside him, and we actually shared an office for like 9 years together. And it was really at KCS where I learned a lot about what it means to feel invisible and not have a voice, and how important it is to have a seat at the table. And I'll just give you one small example. in New York State, mental health services are dictated and delivered a certain way, right? But in our communities, in the Korean community, the way we talk about or actually don't talk about mental health is very different compared to other communities, right? So other communities may not have as much stigma, but we do. And so the way we talk about mental health and what we noticed with a lot of our seniors is that they would come in and say, oh, I'm feeling tired, my body aches. So they would go to their PCP, their like their main doctor. But what they didn't understand was that it was actually symptomatic of depression and other mental health issues that were going on. So we worked with a grant to actually change the way we collect information and ask questions to say, can we do this differently in other communities? And that's when you realize, okay, maybe there's lived and learned experience in our own communities that we can take back up to legislation and inform policies. So this to me was a very, very important moment when I was at KCS, and it was through people like Congresswoman Grace Meng back in 2012 where she's like, you should think about running for something. And I was like, you are crazy. I would never run for office because they're all horrible, corrupt people. And then, and then now here we are, so yeah.
There seems to be a common theme of philanthropy. We're 3 for 3. Just a little note. Take it away, Joe.
I would also have to agree with you. It was a series of aha moments. I didn't have that one defining moment where I was like, oh my God, I want to be a public servant for the rest of my life. I do remember one time though, going back to visibility and language access. I don't know if any of you have been in the position of translating stuff that you get from school or from governments to your parents who may have limited English proficiency. I was oftentimes put in that position, and I remember helping my parents one time, and they just could not figure it out. And so I picked up the phone and I called the number at the bottom of the form, and the kind lady there, I still remember to this day, was with me for over an hour, just trying to explain what's going on. She clearly understood my family situation, and for her to take that time out of her day, I'm sure she had dozens and dozens of calls that she could have responded to during that time, but that was really impactful and meaningful for me. And I still draw upon that experience because I think it raises a couple of things. I think number one, it raises the fact that people are ignored all the time, and people in our community are ignored all the time. If you are in marginalized communities, whether it's language or culture or whatever, social services, whatever the case may be, it's important for all of us to step up, and that's why I'm so encouraged to see all of you here today. I wish I had these opportunities when I was younger, because I was just trying to find, to a point made earlier, where do I need to go? How do I find, my career? And so to have folks like Linda and Ellen and Paul and David here up on the stage to provide shed a little bit of light about their journey, it's really impactful, and I hope you guys take a lot out of this experience because I really wish I had this when I was younger. It would have made my life, I think, a little bit easier just to have a little bit of direction. But I think that was kind of something that I draw upon to this day.
Thank you, Joe. You heard it from Joe. He wishes he came to events like this. So Saturday morning well spent, you guys. And it really resonated with me, the whole having to translate for your parents thing. I felt that really hard. I'm the firstborn daughter, and I feel like that's a burden that a lot of firstborn Korean Americans share. And then next up we have David O.
My father came to Philadelphia in 1953. He came at the end of the Korean War. He had lived through the Japanese occupation. He was actually born in China because his father went to China because of the occupation of Korea, very brutal occupation. And he lived through World War II and the Korean War, and then he came to Philadelphia in '53. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, and he lived on a little block in Southwest Philadelphia, which very quickly through a thing called white flight. We were in a kind of a lower middle class white neighborhood, and there was a transition, and it became suddenly a black neighborhood. And people were moving out very quickly. And so while I was in elementary school, I was the only non-black kid in my school. I was in a rough neighborhood with a lot of violence. It was during a period in Philadelphia where we had a lot of gang wars, and I was living with my friends in the middle of it, and they were killing each other. So at 13 years of age, many of our friends had been shooting and stabbing and killing each other because they simply lived in different parts of the community. So I was not a good student, as you could imagine, right? First of all, I'm a little dim, my father would tell you, and got a lot of bad characteristics. So I was not a smart kid at all, and I got into a lot of fights and other problems, simply, but that was the environment. But deep in my heart, I wanted to be a lawyer. I had watched a TV show called Perry Mason about this person who, through the intelligence and integrity and his commitment to justice, he could go into a situation, believe the unbelieved, and bring justice all by himself. The Korean community in those days were mostly made of people who could not work. There were immigration laws that prevented Koreans to be employed, and there was a lot of discrimination, and my father was a pastor, so they all came to his church. And social work, we didn't get paid. My father did that all day long, helping people for free, you know, all that stuff. But injustice was a big problem, and discrimination, and being ridiculed, and being laughed at. In those days, Koreans just didn't think, it just was unimaginable that someone would be a lawyer, mathematics, engineering, medicine, but not law. And when I told my father I wanted to be a lawyer, he was very surprised, pleasantly surprised, thinking, dreaming, and I said, man, I said something right, which was very rare. And so it was in my heart and my mind, if I could ever be that human being, if I could be that person, not who I am right now, if I could be that person, good person, a kind person, a compassionate person, a person who could bring justice for the poor and for people who are disenfranchised, I'd love to be that person. And my father never stopped praying. My mother never stopped praying for me. And my dream came true. Make a long story short, I didn't deserve to go to law school. I didn't earn my way into law school. I was gifted. I was blessed. And I always thought, this is something I didn't earn. So I was very committed. And it was never in my mind to enter public service, to be an elected official. But over time, I realized that what I had done was I had elevated myself to be the center of my own universe. I wanted to be a great lawyer with a great big firm, doing very good things, and being very wealthy. I would like to do all those things. And I was listening to the radio one day about riverboat gambling, and it was talking about how it was going to solve all these economic problems, and I said, that's not true. I wish somebody would talk about where jobs really come from, how education matters, and then I thought, well, I guess that's me. But I didn't come there by myself. I had come to a plateau in my law practice, and I was introspecting about what I had been doing, and it occurred to me that God had blessed me in many ways, but I was just glorifying myself. So I took this time to run for city council. I figure I'll take a beating, and the more a beating I take, the better. Let me go out and take a bloody beating, show everybody that I'm out there for the public good, and I'm going to lose. But I'll do my best. I'm not trying to lose. I'm trying to win. And when I'm done, God will bless me, and I'll go back to practicing law. But as things turned out, I ran 3 times, and I won the 3rd time. And it was because of the opposition. It was because of all the politics you could imagine, how nasty that can be. But all that nastiness and all that collusion and corruption is all the more reason to get involved and to be unwavering in what you believe and to express that, and it is a wonderful thing to represent other people as their champion. I could only do so much as a lawyer. I tried to do more as an elected official, and that was how I ended up being in city council.
Thank you, David. A lot to digest. Major points. He said he was not a bright kid, so there's hope for all of us. And philanthropy, again, we're 5 for 5, so another thing to note. And I wanted to circle back to something that Linda had touched upon, mental health, which I feel like is not touched upon enough, even still. And this is open to all the panelists, but in particular, Ellen and Linda both are mental health advocates for the Korean community. In that vein of thought, how do we really get Korean Americans to start more dialogues regarding mental health?
I think, you have to look at it as, if you go in for a checkup for your body every year, you should also be allowed to get a checkup for your mind every year, right? So down in New Jersey State Legislature, we are working on that, where if you go to your primary doctor and he asks a series of questions like, how are you feeling? How much are you sleeping? Signs of where there might be, a mental health issue or depression most of the time, right? Because even though it's seen as mental, it really takes a toll on your physical self, right? So we are definitely working on that down at the legislature because that is very important. And I think because of COVID, our senior citizens have really suffered mentally, and they don't know how to express or articulate that they're depressed, right? As Linda put it. So I think it's just getting the word out there that the mind and the body work together, and we should be healthy, both mind and body, and that shouldn't be something that we should feel ashamed about talking about, right? So that's definitely for the younger generation. I have 2 boys myself at home, and I think, one's a high schooler, one's going to high school, and these kinds of conversations are definitely spoken at school. But I think, for the first gen and for the senior citizens, there is definitely a stigma attached. And on a local level, when I was a councilwoman, we had stigma-free zones where people should feel comfortable discussing their mental issues. So I think, again, it's just spreading the word, reinforcing the idea that it's okay to talk about mental health.
Yeah, I think for me, this is a very personal subject that I advocate for and has become something professionally that's very important for me. So, I have very close family members and friends that have severe mental illness. SMIs is what we call them. So I have a very close relative, 2 close relatives actually, but one of them has schizophrenia and she's bipolar as well. And so growing up in our family, no one really talked about it, and my parents knew that there was something off with our relative, but just never asked questions. My family member never talked about it. She, as a parent, felt shame because she felt like she did something wrong, when in reality, it wasn't anything she did or didn't do, right? And I think starting there from a very personal level, it's like, okay, I know it exists, and I know that it's out there, but we just don't talk about it at all. And then fast forward, we saw that when I was working at KCS, we saw that, Asian Americans actually have the highest percentage, and this is a statistic I'm not proud of. We have the highest percentage of underutilization of mental health services, meaning we are the population that is the least likely to get help if we have mental health issues. And this was something, and I think there's a lot of layers to that. There is stigma, but also on the workforce side, I mean, how many people do you know that speak Urdu and have a psychiatry degree? Right? There's not a lot. And I think in New York City, being as diverse as we are, I think the challenge there is there's a real lack of culturally, linguistically competent mental health professionals that are there. And I think there's also, on the flip side, and in addition to this, there's not enough data on our communities, right? So people don't realize, for example, that diabetes is actually very prevalent in the Korean community. Nobody knows that because there's not a lot of data that's been collected. We're a relatively new immigrant community, right? So that's why, it's important to partner with NYU School of Medicine and get all these NIH CDC grants, right? Those are careers as well that we need more Asian Americans in, right? Because we need that lived experience of people who understand what the issues are and can get the data and the research and the funding that's needed to provide these services. So that's something that we did a lot at KCS, which I'm very proud of. But moving forward, I think the other challenge is that when we started our outpatient mental health clinic that's licensed by New York State, I believe KCS is still the only one that is Korean-led, right, and Korean-serving. And that process, it took 4 years for us to open up the clinic, and it was one of the most eye-opening experiences to show how broken our healthcare system is. It is really such a broken system, and if you have language barriers, to your point, right, it's even 10 times harder to navigate. Even as elected officials in New York City, we just passed, just so you guys know, we just passed on June 30th, a couple Fridays ago, a budget that is $107 billion. So New York City's budget is $107 billion, and yet even with that, we can't provide the services that are necessary. In New York City, we're in a mental health crisis right now. And it's after years and years of disinvestment into our mental health system. So one of the things that I did is myself and my staff, we got together last year, came up with a mental health roadmap that we pitched and worked on with the speaker of the city council. And it involves 4 pillars. One is around, the workforce shortage. The second one is around the intersection between criminal justice and mental health, right? The third one is looking at preventive services. So all the nonprofits that are out there doing mental health work, how do we boost them? How do we give them more funding? And then the fourth is really the lack of interagency coordination, which we've been pushing the mayor on to do. So we've worked with Mayor Adams and his team, as well as our council, and we just passed our second package of mental health pieces of legislation, which include at least 10 bills on the city that are really meant to improve. So if you guys ever have free time, which I know you're busy, but if you have free time, I would go to the New York City Council website because it's laid out, because it's city, state, and federal. Different pieces of legislation at every level, recommendations and asks, because on the city of New York side, we have funding, but all the regulation compliance issues on the mental health piece is at the state. And I'm sure it's very similar to other states, that jurisdiction usually lies at the state level. So the reason why it's important for all of us to be here at every level of government is because we need all those voices to inform how those policies are going to be made. And for the very first time, for example, on the city council, we have 6 Asian Americans. That has never happened before. Myself and Julie Wan, we are the first Korean Americans, and you have the first Indian American, the first Bangladesh Muslim. And this is important because all of our experiences coming from the community, we know that this is not working for our communities. And so how do we fix that? Sorry, that was a long answer.
Oh, thank you. No, don't be afraid to ask for help and help each other out as much as you can. And this is open. Whoever else wants to jump in, give their 2 cents.
Well, I think most people have mental health issues. If you're alive, you probably got a lot of mental health issues. I never understood until many, many years later that my father probably had PTSD from seeing so much violence, so many murders. I remember he told me once he had a bicycle, went by the shade of a tree, and an airplane came by, and it strafed the entire group of people, and they all died. Very many stories of violence at a level that most of us are not familiar with. If you're old enough to have lived through the Korean War, World War II, then you know what that is. People in my neighborhood, last week, 5 people were shot. 5 people were murdered, 5 people were murdered about 10 minutes this way, and a couple was murdered about 10 minutes that way. Who doesn't have a mental health problem who lives in that neighborhood? There's so much, firecrackers, gun violence, shootings, poor education, poor schools, poor quality, no jobs, rising costs of property taxes, driving people out of their homes. That's a lot of stress. Families have been destroyed. Many of the men are incarcerated, and they are separated from their children. Our Department of Human Services removes children from their mothers and separates each child from each other and places them in foster care, where many times they're subjected to physical and sexual abuse. The government does not measure itself. There's a lot of need for mental health. There's a lot of need. At the same time, it is important for people to be resilient. It is important for people to understand how to cope with these things and to be strong. And I was talking with a group of, we call them returning citizens, about their role with their children and how they can still be involved in doing homework with their children even though they're incarcerated. Hurt people hurt people. Healed people heal people. We need so much healing in our city. We have to bring those fathers who did wrong but never harmed their children back into the life of their children. We need to unite the mothers with the fathers for the children's sake. There's a lot of repairing we have to do, and a lot of it all has to do with the mental perception of who you are, where you are. Is this normal or abnormal? Get all the help you can get. If you need it, go get it, but you also have to understand, am I broken or am I just living? And how do I help other people? I dare say that many people on this stage have been through some stuff, because politics is a really, difficult thing to do, especially when they attack your character and they try to assassinate your integrity. And, it's tough, right? But they are resilient to have lived through that, to continue to work through that. And so one of the things that we can all do is support each other and recognize, that each person needs a little encouragement and help. But if you are at a breaking point or you see a breaking point, we have to get engaged and make sure we're helping each other, especially as the was said up here. If people are not going to reach out for help themselves, maybe we can gently and kindly find a way to encourage that help.
Thank you so much, David. We are on a little bit of a time crunch, so I'm going to try and consolidate and turn the tides to something a little bit more positive, because I feel like that was a little heavy. Just a quick reminder to the students, please make sure to write down any questions. We will have some time for Q&A at the end. And I feel like we've been neglecting him a little bit, but Joe, very specifically towards you. So with your background with starting off at the CIA, I feel like when you hear CIA, there's a very specific idea or imagination about what you do because of mainstream media or movies, et cetera. So my question to you is, do you find any parallels between your current position and your position at the CIA?
Could I interrupt just for 1 second?
If it's really quick, David.
How many people know what the CIA is? Okay, so Joe, you got to explain it.
Really? That is really the Central Intelligence Agency? Y'all don't know? Okay, all right.
Okay. Central Intelligence Agency, you guys.
You guys seen any movies? CIA, FBI? No?
FBI.
KBG?
Who knows what the FBI is? Raise of hands. All right, okay. We have
Federal
more.
Bureau of Investigation. Okay, so any quick parallels that you find between your current position and your position?
That's a tough one. I would say when I was at the CIA, that was my first job out of college, and I was very young and naive at that time. I think I was an analyst at the CIA, and so what that means is you are collecting or analyzing intelligence that you get from different agencies, right? So it could be like imagery, it could be signals intelligence, which is tapping into phones, or it could be human intelligence, which is the traditional form of like, hey, what do you know about this topic, and taking it back. My job was to take all of that and then analyze it and then say, hey, Miss Policymaker, or hey, Mr. Policymaker, this is what's happening in North Korea. This is what's happening in Iran. And people in my discipline or in my field, that was our job. What I found most frustrating about that experience was I would go and say, hey, here's this important piece of information. And if you're a policymaker, like the folks here up on this stage, oftentimes you don't have a lot of time to read through 5-10 pages of really dense material. And so I found that a lot of what I was communicating was sometimes being lost in the policy churn. And so what that means is like they were just so busy with their day-to-day and just managing their constituents and talking with other legislators that I wasn't finding that impact that I really needed. And where I am right now as Deputy Chief of Staff, I tend to find that I do have that ability to have that impact at a policy level because I can make that policy. Whereas before I was advising people who are making policy, right now I'm in a position to make policy, and so I think that is the biggest difference there.
You answered it well, even though you said it was a tough question. Okay, and then one final question to all the panelists, because we are always pressed for time at these things. What would you like to see from the next generation? Like, what is your hope for the future, particularly from those who might be thinking about pursuing a similar career path? Starting off with Paul Kim.
Thank you. Guys, we're all here. We're all politicians. We could be crooked. We could be crazy. But we're here for one reason. We're here for you. You guys are here for us. No, we're here for you. Because we're investing our energy and time and moving forward for our dreams for you. Because sooner or later, we'll be all gone. But what have we accomplished? What have we create? Build up the foundation? It's up to you guys, the next generation, to move forward and continue our progress. And having said that, concerning what your aspirations is of what you guys want to do, please do what you feel the passion and love for. Don't chase the money. If that's thinking about money right now, I don't know, maybe you guys are not worried about money, but always chase your dreams because that's where your pure energy is. That's where your devotion is, and that's where your character comes out. So be pure about what you want to do, and don't let anybody else tell you what you want to do, because it's up to you. And you're right, even you go to college, you may even change your direction of what you want to pursue. Now, we're here, right, in America. I want to just talk about this again. We are Korean Americans. We have every right as other Americans, but we have an advantage. We share culture. We share a similar vision of how to treat other people. We respect. We have a community. I want you guys to, as you guys progress through life, don't forget the pureness of humanity, the humility, the basic principles of serving others, taking care of each other, taking care of your friends, your family, your neighbor, your grandma across the street. This is something that you tend to lose, because life sucks as it grows up. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm sorry.
Wow.
It doesn't get any better. But if you keep that pureness, your character of helping others, it will lead you to the right direction. It's the right thing to do, especially we're in America, and we're Korean Americans. We should be sticking together, helping each other, helping others around your neighborhood. We start our reform, our progress of being a better example for the future from the family, from your friends. Start from there. Don't think big. You can make a big difference locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Clapper. Thank you.
I'm going to just, I guess, talk about politics just because I believe that everyone here are good, everyone here is good daughter, good son. We all know where we came from. We're not going to forget that. That's why we're here. But, politically, I think I'm going to disagree with the mayor a little bit in the sense that, yes, we are here for you. We are here to open doors for you. We are here to bridge the gap for you. We are here for you. But at the same time, you guys are the next generation of movers and shakers, right? In about 20 years, I'm going to be 70 plus years old. I'm going to rely on you to take care of us, right? Because that is also cultural, right? We help each other. We're here to help you guys move up in life and have a better life than when we came to this country and had the first experience as immigrants, right? You guys have each other. So, I really want you guys to use your voice. Don't take crap from anyone, right? I think, I know culturally we're supposed to be respectful, and we are respectful, but I think in this country, we need to learn how to communicate. We need to learn how to articulate what it is that we're trying to express to the other person. And this is how other people around us are going to look at us. Like, oh, she's educated, but there are people, politicians, who really can't speak and communicate. And to be a better politician or even a better employee, right? Today's world is all about Zoom and video conferences. The ones that actually use their voice to articulate what they're trying to get across, I think is going to be a huge advantage for you. And whether that is in English, in Spanish, in Korean, whatever language that you speak, you really, I think from now on, the future is about communication. So please, 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 don't keep your mouth closed. If something is bothering you, please tell someone, please tell your friend, please tell whoever it is that you need to tell, but please do not just keep your mouth closed, because I don't think that will be good for us as a community in the future. So,
Thank you so much, Ellen. Linda?
I think what I would say is, it's interesting when you look at the different immigrant communities that come in the different generations, right? So our first generation, my parents, 2 dry cleaners, right? They were here, very dedicated to church, like here as really just to survive, right? And to build that foundation and base, which is why I will forever be grateful to the first generation Korean Americans. And then I think so now as second gen, we've sort of been able to expand and explore the different types of careers that we see and what's out there. And we've become, we've expanded outwardly, right? So a lot of us in our day-to-day lives, we're not just interacting with Korean Americans, but we're interacting across the spectrum with all these different communities. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that diversity. And so how do we build coalition with others, right? So it's not about taking from each other's pie, but how do we build the pie, right? How do we expand the pie? And I think building coalition with other communities is extremely important to move things forward, and it's important personally as well as professionally. But I think what I would want is, for a lot of us up here, we may be the first. I don't want us to be the last. What I would love to see is more of our younger generation going into all different types of professions. My sister actually is a diplomat for the US government, and she's gonna be in Baghdad next year. She's a Korean American that speaks, reads, and writes Arabic fluently. And it's interesting because when, I don't think my parents really expected both of us to be public servants, but it was funny because after college, she told my parents, I'm moving to Egypt, and they were like, where did we go wrong? And I was like, don't worry, she'll be fine, right? But it's really allowing yourself to make mistakes, which I think is really important, to make mistakes and also question, right? So question things, which I know is very it goes against some of how we were brought up, right? Like we're kind of brought up like, don't question, just mind your own business, don't cause trouble. But I actually do think that what I would love to see in my kids, because I have 2 boys as well, what I would love to see is for them to really explore, question, think outside the box, think differently, and really influence the people who are around them positively. So I would love to see more of that in our future generation.
Thank you, Linda.
For me, I guess going back to one of the questions about the stereotypes of, our parents want us to become doctors and engineers and lawyers, I kind of want to flip that because there are opportunities to be doctors and engineers and lawyers within government. And I think that's really important to recognize. My goal here is for all of you to be in government one day. That is probably not going to happen, and I fully acknowledge that. But if I can say just one thing, one piece of homework assignment, if you will, I'm going to kind of leverage my ability to be on the stand here. My homework assignment for all of you, at some point in your life, whether it's in high school or in college or in grad school, do one internship experience, one volunteer experience, one apprenticeship in government, because it is so important, whether you're in the private sector, whether you're a nonprofit, to know how government works, and that type of visibility will serve you for the rest of your career. And so if you're not going to be a government employee, that's okay. I won't be hurt by that, but just one internship experience, that's all I ask for you. And I want to see more people that look like us on this stage and look like the people around you in the halls of government, because that is so empowering. You have no idea how empowering it is to walk down the hall and see Representative Patty Kim and brush shoulders with her. So that's my goal.
Thank you so much, Joe. David?
I end up in interesting places. I'm invited to interesting places. I was at an event with a lot of young African Americans, poor community. And there are many complex problems that exist. And there's not a good feeling about Asian Americans or Korean Americans in general. So I'm always delighted to be invited. One of the things I have to say is I ask them, what do you see when you see me? What do you see? What do you think I see? What I see is the splitting image of God Almighty, perfect and beautiful, with no lack. I like you to feel the same thing. Perfectly made, perfect, unique in everything that you are. But you have to know who you are to the core. And then you have to be the better version of you. Take your time to study, to learn, to introspect. If you got a little music in you, see how that music can fill your life and help others. If you're good in math, make that math something you could really use. If you got a gift of gab, you're a good storyteller, develop that. Be you. Don't let anyone shake who you are. Find out to your core, on your deathbed, who you are, that you will not live with regret. You'll not regret your life. But be the better version of you. That is in your control. You must do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I did get some good questions from the audience here. A common theme to ask the panelists seems to deal with race, because we are all Korean here. We have Korean heritage. And a common question was, how have you dealt with any kind of discrimination you may have faced because of your race? We can start off with Paul, or whoever wants to jump in who has a thought.
Okay, let me just start this out and make it quick. I use the negative energy into positive energy. You guys have to learn that sooner or later. You're not always going to get compliments. You're not always going to give, oh, you're always doing a good job. If someone hurts you, use that and reverse it into positive energy that makes you burn your engines to do better. Do something that, use that energy so it won't happen to you again. But don't use that energy for negative reasons. Don't accept that negative energy and make it into, just bounce it back as negative energy. Whatever someone does to you in that kind of stuff, you act that you have every right as an American citizen here, and you follow the law, but you don't forget that moment when someone discriminated you, hurt you. If someone discriminated, you can always, contact the proper authority. You have to follow the process. However, you should, because you have to protect your rights, because we live in America. But that negative energy, don't dwindle in it. Don't let it hurt you. Use it to make it grow stronger for you. And next time, when you do become, in a position where you're going to have to, you can't give and provide to the public, that energy will be there with you. There is a reason why you're out there like Joe tells you, that try to do at least one good philanthropy work. Those kind of things you could always learn to make it into positive energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Whoever else wants to jump in, or Ellen.
I think, feeling discriminated against is kind of par for the course if you're an immigrant in this country. It doesn't matter if you came here in the 70s. It doesn't matter if you come here now. That's something that's going to be there, right? That's going to exist. And I think, as the mayor put it, if you put out positive energy, the universe will give back positive energy. So, we always, we don't forget, right? We forgive, but we don't forget, right? So you take that experience, don't forget that experience, but you forgive that person who is discriminating against you, because it's also, like I said, you need to move on and you need to be positive, right? And I think it's just trying to learn how to deal with a certain situation where someone treated you differently, whether it's because the way you look, how you speak, where you live. You know, there's a million reasons why someone can discriminate against you, but it's how you turn that around and how you treat that person that person is going to take away from the situation, right? So if they're nasty to you, you can turn around and be nasty to them. That's how we're gonna feel it. But at the same time, if someone treated you badly, but you turn around and you give them kindness, guess what? That person's gonna remember that experience and say, you know what? Even though I did you wrong, you did not turn it around on me. So always be positive. And, you know, Koreans, we are strong, we are resilient, you know, we are a force to be reckoned with. So always remember that, right? And if you forget, watch some Korean films or Netflix, it'll show you how really tough we are. So, you know, always, again, be positive.
Sort of going along with the same theme, you know, growing up in a mostly non-Asian community, I remember as a kid being on the playground and they're like, what are you, Chinese? I'm like, no. Japanese? No. Then what are you? I'm Korean. What's that? You know? And they had no idea what Korean American was. And they would sing songs and ching chong and all these things that were very, you know, and, you know, offensive, right? And hurtful. And it's interesting because it really, what I would challenge all of you with is to ask yourselves, where is this coming from? And how can you change that into an action that you will then turn into a positive thing, right? And there's a lot of discrimination you'll face. And I have to say, when I started running for my seat, I wasn't sure if they were ready for an Asian American, because every person who was in the seat, and we're talking about Queens, right, which is very diverse, but I'm the first person of color and woman. The seat was always held by a white man before me. And I wasn't really sure if people would be accepting of an Asian woman, right? And I think what I surprisingly found is that disappears when you start talking and building relationships with people, and you realize how much more we have in common with each other than we don't. I actually think I get discriminated more because of my politics, because I'm a moderate Dem, which in New York City is like, ugh, you know, these days. Yeah, exactly. I'm the evil moderate on the city council, which is interesting, right? Because one of the ways I would describe myself is that I'm a New York City moderate, which means anywhere outside of New York City, I'd be very progressive, right? But only in New York City I might consider moderate. So it's interesting how even amongst some of my colleagues on the council who are very far right or very far left will make assumptions about you based on what your political view or party is, which I also feel like there's all these layers of stereotypes and biases that we have, but really taking the time to communicate and build relationships and really say, if I put myself in your shoes, where is this really coming from? And really trying to understand that person from where they're at.
Thank you. Joe?
Agree with everything that was just said. I think it's important for us to recognize that, yes, we will be victims of discrimination and we will be victims of racism, absolutely. But it's also important for all of us to recognize that your friends, your neighbors, your grandma, your mom, your cousin, you know, the librarian who's maybe Korean American, like, they will also experience discrimination. And some of my biggest regrets in life is staying quiet when I saw that happen. And I still remember it to this day, those examples where I didn't say anything in that moment, and it still haunts me to this day. And so what I would say to you all is, yes, look after yourselves, make sure that you seek therapy and mental health. That's all very important, but look out for each other. Look out for the other people that are sitting in that table with you. Look out for your parents, look out for your grandma, your grandparents, because guaranteed they will at least experience one instance of discrimination, of racism, because you know, it's just part of what we have to deal with, unfortunately, in this country. So,
Thank you so much, Joe. David?
Actually, I was never discriminated against in my neighborhood. I was the only Asian kid in a poor, black, violent neighborhood, and nobody ever discriminated against me. When someone would say, he's Chinese, my friends would say, he's a brother. He's not a brother, he's a soul brother. And that would be the end of it,
We
right?
know
It
your
wouldn't-
soul brother.
It wasn't until later, educated, intelligent, wealthy people would discriminate. And I found that very interesting, that it is educated, well-to-do, well-intentioned people that are so very, very discriminatory and feel that they can dictate to poor people how they should live, what they think, what the solutions are. They're very, very intrusive and disrespectful. So I think, at least in my life, I have found that the worst things that happened to me have been like the best things. I have had such bad smearing done on me that when one of my friends was smeared, he and I talked, and I said, forgive and forget. And he said to me, he said, only you could say that to me, because you really had it badly. You know, in other words, how dare you say that to me? But okay, you lived through that, and now I can hear you. Like the hurt that you get, the pain that you receive, the public humiliation that you endure gives you the credentials to talk with people. You know, who wants to talk to a person, everything's perfect in their life? What can he tell you or she tell you? But someone who's been right down there, and they can share, and they can spend time with you and have compassionate silence, is a really wonderful, wonderful opportunity. It is a door opener. So yeah, it's a terrible thing, fight against it, stand up for others, be kind, but understand that when you endure suffering, I tell people, they said, how'd you get elected? I said, people felt sorry for me. What happened is, I'd been beaten down so many times, they finally said, oh my God, we better vote for this guy. And people are very compassionate in, like, this Chinese guy. He's out there all by himself, sweating, he's got no help. Nobody's helping this guy. You know, he just keeps coming back. And he's been through every difficult, challenging, humiliating thing. We're going to vote for him. So, you know, it depends on how you look at it.
Wow, thank you so much. So we are coming towards the end, and we only have time for one more question, if we keep it very, very brief. There seems to be another common theme amongst the questions. How do you maintain a balance between being Korean and American? Is there a way that is there something that you do, or somewhere that you go, or someone you talk to where whenever you feel the need to maintain your Korean roots?
I'll go first because I'm from Palisades Park. Palisades Park is over 60 to 65% Korean Americans. So that really doesn't occur my mind. But however, when I go off, Bergen County, Fort Lee area, Cliffside Park, where there are, you know, like we have about 1 million Korean Americans in New Jersey. And I think about a little over 100,000 is all concentrated in Bergen County. And we have about 12,000 Korean Americans in Palisades Park. So I don't really think about that. But when I travel a little more down south, where I see less and less Korean Americans, I make sure that I act my part as a civil, not a Korean American, but a civil American. I don't think to myself, oh, they're looking at me because I don't look like them. I act properly, I talk intuitively, I give them respect, and I expect respect in return. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
You know, again, the word is Korean American, Korean Guatemalan, Korean. Just remember that half of you, literally half of you, mind and body, is Korean. So whether that means, you know, never forgetting what it is to be kind to your elders, or kind to your dongsangs, right? Like this is what we are taught culturally, right? So never forget your culture. And you know, the world is getting smaller because of social media, because of Facebook and all these other social media outlets, which means that the world is aware of BTS. The world is aware of K-foods, right? Well, that was your generation. No one does that. No one does Gangnam Style anymore. Just last week, I went to a Twice concert in New Jersey, and I was so surprised. There were literally maybe, I don't know, like 80,000 people there to watch Twice, who I've never even heard of unless my kids are the ones that were like, let's go. So we went. But, you know, the world is getting to know us better, right, as Koreans. And they know the difference between Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese now, right? That wasn't the case 20, 30 years ago. But now they are very aware, right? So always remember that you have that support. You know, we are thought of, I think right now, it's definitely this wave of, you know, everything Korean. And so, you know, I think you guys also need to know that and use that momentum to be very proud of where you come from and what you're about. So don't forget.
This is an interesting question because I just feel like it's built into who you are, and there are times and places and situations where your Korean voice will come out more. And to be honest, I didn't really feel that sense or need to be a voice for my community until it's become more and more evident, I think, as I get older, right? And I realize how important my roots are. And it's not that I didn't think they were important before, but like, you know, as a kid growing up, you're trying to figure out the different, you know, what am I doing in life, and, you know, playing with your friends and other priorities, or doing well in school. And I think as you get older, it's kind of cool because now my generation, like one of my dear friends, Esther Choi, who's a chef, like, she's unapologetically, you know, a Korean chef, and infiltrates that into everything she does. It's just part of who she is. And I think David Chang, I was watching a documentary, and he was talking about Korean food and how, you know, Korean food, like, we haven't compromised on the flavors, the spices, the way things are cooked. And now everyone else is just catching up to how awesome Korean food is, right? So we've always been who we are. And I think that's actually really amazing as a community to see now how we're sort of, I don't want to say infiltrate, but like we're influencing different spaces now, which we were not really part of before. And it's just like always who we were, and now have a different forum and voice, you know? And it's actually really cool to see that. I mean, I have to say my default with my Koreanness is like food, always, right? Like, I think all of us can relate to that, no matter like what generation or what it is that we are. But that's like my comfort right there.
Agreed on the food.
You stole my answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think number one, there is no perfect way to be Korean American. How you are Korean American is how you define it. And so don't let society dictate that for you. Don't let your parents or your friends, like your community. It's your experience, it's your life. And so you can be as Korean or as American as you want. And that is okay, number one. And then number two, I find my Koreanness through my food. and during the pandemic, I was like, I'm sure all of you here, I was forced to be in a position where I was alone in my apartment, and you know, for whatever reason, I had some creative inspiration, and I started cooking, and now I know how to make a really mean, you know, tteokbokki. I know how to make bulgogi, like, you know, and that, like, the fact, like, going to H Mart and buying all these ingredients and cooking really allowed me to draw some connection with my mom, who, like, I took all of this for granted for so long, and just understanding the complexity of the flavors and the spices, like, that was really meaningful for me, and that's how I draw a lot of my my Koreanness from. And also, Harrisburg has like 3 Korean restaurants, and one of them is named Korealicious, so they very much cater towards a non-Korean audience. But yeah, I would say that's how I would define myself. Yeah.
All this talk about food towards lunchtime, convenient, right? Yeah. So we're almost done. We're going to wrap up with David O.
I shouldn't say this, but I take gochujang and mix a little mayo and put on my hot dog.
That sounds good, you guys.
Is that wrong?
I want to try that. That
Am I
sounds
kicked
good.
out? Did I lose my Korean card? That's good. Anyway, you are what you are. You are who you are. Listen, I wish I could speak Korean. I'm just not. Didn't I say I'm not bright? So I can't. My father tried to teach me. It didn't make me any less Korean American. It didn't really quite matter to me. I'm not saying I shouldn't speak Korean. I wish I could. I'm just dim. But what happens is you are who you are. You just happen to be Korean American. You define it, but you try to be the better you. But I will say this, what I did find is that in city government and in government, when Koreans were being targeted and persecuted with just unconstitutional injustice, nobody wanted to speak up. But I did speak up. Oh, he's fighting for his people. I said, listen, I fight for people. I don't turn my back on my people. There is where people may perceive that portion of you Korean, but I do it for other people too. But sometimes there are plenty of people to speak for others, and it's very popular to speak for them. But for the despised, who nobody wants to speak, the vilified, you have a chance to step up. And then when it's your own people, it's a wonderful opportunity to share with people what justice really is.
Thank you so much to all the panelists. If everyone could give, please, a warm round of applause for all the amazing panelists up here. And our takeaway for you is we hope that in the audience you feel motivated by the panelists' words to either seek out similar career goals or whatever you decide to do in the future. Stay safe, stay kind, dream big, and help each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories and guidance. Please give another big applause for everybody here, panelists and moderator. Thank you.
Hey everybody, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy here to welcome you to the Leadership Forum 2023 for Young Korean Americans. New Jersey is incredibly blessed to be home to one of the largest Korean American communities in the entire country. And this year we mark the 70th anniversary of the alliance between the United States of America and the Republic of Korea, as well as the 120th anniversary of the arrival of the very first Korean immigrants to our nation. And as we celebrate these milestones, we also recognize all that Korean Americans have contributed to our culture and heritage. And on that note, it is my privilege to join you in honoring my dear friend, Ewon Kim, the Consul General of the Republic of Korea in New York, and Judy Lee, President of the Federation of Korean American Associations of Northeastern USA, two outstanding role models and leaders. And as you take part in today's programming and have the opportunity to reflect on the important role the Korean American community plays across the state, national, and international interests, I hope you'll be inspired to be involved as current and future leaders. I wish you all the best for what I know will be a meaningful and successful conference. Thank you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy Kim, and I want to say thank you to the Federation, to Judy Yu, to the Consulate General for pulling this together and having this opportunity for us to be able to engage and talk about and lift up young voices in our community and young leaders in our community. It's so important now more than ever that we do what we can to make sure we're creating the kind of environment where we can lift up those types of leaders. There's right now a hunger for that next generation of leadership in public service, within our communities, at so many levels. And I really think right now that the Korean American community will benefit so much from seeing young people step up and be able to have that kind of voice and action. But we know it's not going to just happen on its own. I was the beneficiary of having people looking out for me, giving me opportunities, finding chances for me to be able to hone my skills and be able to have opportunities to grow. And that's what this is about, with this federation and other efforts for all of us come together to be able to do that. To the young folks here in this event, I really hope you take away from this a sincere effort on my part and on others to be able to make sure that you have your voices heard, that we can try to figure out how to work with you to be able to find a way for you to contribute in the way that you want to. Please don't hesitate to reach out if there's ever anything I can do, and I look forward to staying in touch. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person as I'm stuck down in DC, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that we're continuing to do this across New Jersey, across the whole country, in a way that is going to bring about that kind of next generation of leadership that we know that we so badly need, and that will make our country much richer for that. So thank you to everyone who's supporting this effort, and I look forward to continuing this with you. Thank you.
Hello everybody, this is State Assembly Member Ron Kim. I am a state representative of Queens, New York. I've been in office for 11 years. I chair the Committee on Aging that oversees the rights of older people in New York. But today we're talking about not older Americans, but young people, especially the young Korean American leaders, the next generation of leaders that will be policymakers, that will be lawmakers, doctors, lawyers, financiers, artists, people work in Hollywood. We have so many amazing young Korean Americans with aspiring passions that want to pursue careers that I never even dreamed of when I was a kid. So my job as a lawmaker is to make sure that we have all these opportunities. So when a young person has a passion and a purpose in this country, in our state, we have as many paths to achieve success in those careers. I want to thank Judy Yu, the president of the Federation of Korean Americans of Northeast New York, our Consul General Ambassador of South Korea, of hosting this very important event every single year. I believe I've attended once one of these conferences a few years ago, but every year around this time I have unfortunately other conflicting schedules. I won't be able to join you this year, but I do want to make sure that the people behind the organizing, the sponsors, and all the supporters know that I am very grateful for your leadership to supporting the next generation of Korean Americans. And together, we will one day get the first Korean American governor of New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and one day a Korean American president at the White House. Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's State Representative Patty Kim here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm so sorry that I couldn't be with you today as we are trying to pass a budget by the deadline of July 1st. But I did want to greet everyone, to say hello. I want to thank the Federation and Judy Yu and the Consulate General for putting together another important conference. I think it is so important for us to network, to build relationships, because we all have pretty much the same goal in mind. Here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, I started up the new caucus for AAPI members. We have 4 now in the General Assembly. So this hasn't happened. This is the first time it's happened in 200 years. And so as we are trying to make it more inclusive, this is the time for young people to get involved. You don't have to be an elected official, but to work in government, to have your voice, to have your perspective at the decision-making table, I think is so important. So keep going. If you need any help, reach out to me. I would love to see all of you succeed. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. John Yoon. I am an otolaryngologist and head and neck surgeon from Kentucky. Recently, I was elected president of the Federation of Midwest Korean American Association. On behalf of my colleagues from the 13 Midwest states, I bring you greetings, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you here at this Leadership Forum. I would like to thank the Consulate General of New York and also your very own Federation President Judy Yu for organizing and hosting this wonderful event. I have seen the programs of the last 3 years, and every year lineup of speakers were exceptional leaders in their field of endeavor. I know that by attending this year's forum is of no exception. You will hear from the very best who will inspire you, motivate you, and ignite that passion inside you to help guide you to be the next generation great leader. Best of luck, and God bless.
Hello, my name is James An. I'm the president of the Korean American Federation of Los Angeles, also known as FKAANE. As we mark the 120th anniversary of Korean immigration to the United States, we celebrate the tremendous contributions that Korean Americans have made to this country. Technological, academic, and scientific achievements, the ongoing explosion of Korean culture, K-dramas, K-pop, and K-food have finally made it cool to be Korean American. Despite these achievements, however, the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted that issues such as language access, equity and health access, and difficulties navigating governmental resources still present barriers in our communities. That is why it is so important that all of you are here today. I hope that the stories you hear from today's panelists truly inspire you to become a leader in the Korean American community. Whether that's through increased volunteerism, civic engagement, or even considering a career in politics, we need younger leaders like yourselves to advocate for our ommas, appas, 할머nis, and 할아버jis. I'd like to congratulate President Judy Yu, the Consul General of the Republic of Korea in New York, and the rest of the volunteers who helped organize today's event. I'd also like to recognize all of today's panelists for your dedication to our next generation of leaders. And last but not least, I'd like to thank all of you, our next generation's leaders, for being here today. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and good luck.
Congratulations, President Judy Yu, for another successful Young Korean Americans Leadership Forum. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to make a congratulatory remark. My name is Steve Lee, and I'm the president of the Korean American Association of Greater Washington Metropolitan Area. Our association was established in 1953 and serves 250,000 plus Korean Americans in DC, Maryland, Virginia, also known as DMV area. With the federal government and 177 embassies, Washington DC area has become the most important area in the US and the world. We hope that Young Korean American Leadership Forum expand its coverage and promote other young Korean American in our DMV area as well. This is where you network and learn why you are so important for our future. Please remember that you serve our community better as Korean American when you are better American Korean. America is 100% immigrants, and immigrants made this country the superpower of the world. Thank you.